Hey, everybody. Welcome to Marketing Mondays, number 59. I am going to take a second here to get everybody pinged in, and then we will get going. Thanks for tuning in this morning. It is Monday, June 27th. Hard to believe we're already at the end of June, but give me a second. Let me get everybody pinged in, and then we will get going. So thanks for joining this morning. And I think we are good to go. So as always, if you're new to the Marketing Mondays, you can ask questions. You can just put them right in the comments, and we will do our best to answer those questions for you with regard to anything that you guys have that comes in at the top. Good to see you, Tim. Thanks for stopping in. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and put them in the comments. I will see them show up on the right-hand side. I'm just getting one more thing added here, and then we will go. And if you sent in questions, I'm going to try to get to those this morning as well, but I will always give a priority to people that are in here live. So if you don't hear me getting to your question and you want to make sure I get to it, go ahead and put it in the comments, and I will get to that while we're in the Clubhouse live. So if you have any clarifications on any questions I'm answering, again, same thing, put it in the comments and I will get to that live. So with that, let's go ahead and get this thing kicked off and we'll go from there. So the question is, you've talked a lot about targeting options on social media, but recently they've removed some targeting. How do you target for things they've removed for? So if you're unfamiliar, essentially within Facebook recently, and it's kind of ongoing, it continues to change even as we use the platform. They're removing targeting options, and this kind of started back in 2016 after the Cambridge Analytica stuff. They started to remove some targeting options, and they've continued to do that ever since then. So they've continued to actually remove different things that they view as people maybe being able to use to be discriminatory or things like that. So occasionally you'll go in to use an audience maybe you've used in the past, and you'll find out that it'll have a red warning and saying some targeting options have been eliminated. And this person's asking, when those targeting options are eliminated, but it's somebody that you want to target, is there any way to get around that? So first off, obviously Facebook's doing it for a reason. Some of the more common ones are with regard to race, demographics, male or female, different things like that. With regard to certain things like employment, if you're posting a help wanted, you have to put it in a certain range. You can't just target certain areas, or you can't target certain age groups because that could be considered discriminatory. So some of these things Facebook is designed so that you can't use it in such a way that would be discriminatory. However, there's other things that they've taken away that I could kind of maybe see where they're coming from, but you might have a need for them. A lot of our clients like to target homeowners, people that own homes in a given area that they're servicing, because the services that they provide aren't really relevant to somebody that doesn't own a home. Say it's a home improvement product or something like that. Well, if you're renting, you typically aren't going to want to buy something for a piece of property that you're renting. So it really, targeting homeowners can be valuable. So one of the things that Facebook took away, though, was the ability. They used to have a demographic targeting area for homeowners, and they no longer have that. So if you want to target homeowners, but that option is not available, what are some of the ways you can do that? So what we try to do when we're approached with something like that is think of some other things a homeowner might be interested in that maybe exclusively a homeowner would be interested in that a non-homeowner wouldn't be. So for example, something like a home refinance loan, like a mortgage refinance loan, basically mortgage loans, home equity loans, things like that might be something that you could target, because those are interest demographics that you can target. People that are interested in home equity loans. Well, guess what? People that are interested in home equity loans probably own a home. So that's one way to sort of differentiate. Even though you're not targeting homeowners, you're targeting things that are unique to homeowners. The other thing you can target are things like home remodeling or things like that. Again, people typically aren't spending money if they're renting a property. So if you target things, if you sit there and think whether it's homeowners or other things that you're trying to target, if you think of things that would be unique to that interest group that they would be interested in, and you target for that in a roundabout way, you've actually targeted for people that are homeowners. So again, without getting too far siloed down into homeowners, just start to think about something that you're trying to target and think about things that would be specific to that. And then, Jeff actually commented like appliances, like what, like if there's an interest target, you can always type in and it'll tell you whether there's interest targets or not as you're trying to target. So not everything is going to have an interest target, but if you start typing in things like refinancing my home or home mortgage loan or home equity loans or reverse mortgages or things like that, you'll be able to see what is available to target from, and then you'll be able to target for that. So you just have to play around with it a little bit, but you can actually figure out ways to target for interest demographics that Facebook has taken away. You just have to be a little bit smarter about it, and you have to work a little bit at it. But the nice thing is once you build that audience, say that you consistently target homeowners, you can save that audience as your company's homeowner audience. And as long as Facebook doesn't take away any other interest graphs, you've done that work, but you've done it one time, and then you can save that audience as your homeowner audience, and you're good to go from that point forward. So hopefully that helps you. Hopefully that answers this question. It is a little bit finicky, and it's a constantly moving target because Facebook is continuing to remove some targeting as we speak. Like every week when we go in, sometimes there's different targeting that was available last week that's no longer available. Also, sometimes there's new targeting that's added. So if you're not in those audience graphs checking things, sometimes you can miss out on some targeting that has become available, or sometimes you have to figure out another way to target something you had been using. So hopefully that helps with regard to social media targeting. And if you have any questions, again, go ahead and put them in the comments. I'd be happy to get back to them. So the next question is, I've been doing Google AdWords using the smart campaigns. Is this okay? Or should I be using the standard version? Someone else has told me that I should not be using smart campaigns. So real quick, let me explain the groundwork, what that is. When you do Google AdWords, the main Google AdWords, it's actually a little bit more complex. There's a lot of options to choose. There's a lot of things. They also make an option if you just want to start doing Google AdWords to create what's called a smart campaign, which is kind of like the easy button at Staples. They make it very easy. You fill out a little bit of information and you can be running ads. I would typically say that, if you want to run AdWords and you want to just dip your foot in the water, trying with smart campaigns could be something you want to do. However, if you're going to start, defining some budget that you want to spend every month, I think it's well worth your while to actually build out a complete Google AdWords campaign. The options you have, the ability to change certain small things is a lot greater on the standard Google AdWords platform versus smart campaigns. So again, there's nothing necessarily wrong with smart campaigns, but think about it. You guys have heard me talk about using the boost button on Facebook and how I'm not a fan because it doesn't give you all the options that creating an ad on the back end of Facebook Ads Manager does. Very similar using a smart campaign. It's a way to get an ad up and running, and very quickly and easily, it's a way to get an ad up and running, but it's not necessarily the most efficient or the best way to do it because you're missing out on some of the detailed targeting and detailed ways you could build out an ad with the regular campaigns, and you're just utilizing more of a generic type of campaign that can get your ads up and running. So again, there's nothing wrong with it specifically, but it's just you could probably tweak it in and get a little bit better performance out of a standard ad than you can out of a smart campaign. Just like with a social media ad, you can get better performance out of that if it's used properly than you can out of using the boost button. So again, if you have any questions about that, Jeff says, I've seen people use other high searchable Google image to increase their Google search position. I'm assuming you're talking, so Jeff's question is, I've seen people use other high searchable Google images to increase their Google search position. I haven't tried it, but does this work? I'm assuming what you're talking about, Jeff, is they're using optimized images, and they're typically probably loading them into their Google business page in an optimized way so that when people are searching for certain things, a good example, we work with a lot of companies that do window tint. So let's say that you have pictures of a Tesla Model 3 that you've recently tinted. You can optimize that image specific to Tesla Model 3 window tint. Then when people in your area are searching for Tesla Model 3 tinting or Tesla window tinting, there's a good chance that your image may populate high up in the image search area or show up on the searches because you have an image that's optimized for Tesla window tinting. So you can utilize optimized images to hack away at coming up better in search results than, but you got to think about it a little bit differently. You should be optimizing the images that are on your website already. So that should be part of your SEO already. But there's another way where you can optimize images specifically that you put on Google Business, and that can help your optimization with regard to where you show up on the Google Business page, in the map pack, things like that. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what you were referring to with that, Jeff, but hopefully that answers your question. Good to see you, Billy. Glad you're joining in. I'm going to jump into the next question here. What is a common targeting mistake that you see, and how can it be corrected? Okay. I'm going to assume that this is for, I'm going to assume this is for Facebook and Meta, let's just call it Meta, but I'll also touch on a little bit with Google. So a common targeting mistake that we see is that there's an option when you create an audience and you put in a geographic area, both on Google and in Facebook, where you can choose whether somebody lives in that area or is in that area, or if they're just interested in that area. And on Facebook, it's going to be where you define the geographic area, and the same thing on Google in the settings where you define the geographic area. Usually on Google, it's in the advanced settings, and Facebook, it's just a drop-down menu right there. A mistake that I see a lot of people make is sometimes these platforms default to somebody that's in those areas or interested in those areas. So let's say that you're targeting a city, let's just say Boston, Massachusetts, you're targeting that city. If you don't change that to be people that are in those areas or live in those areas, you may be showing your ads to a lot of people that are just interested in Boston. Maybe they're interested in taking a vacation to Boston. So they don't even live in Boston. Say you do your services in Boston. So you really only want to reach people that are in and around the Boston area, but you haven't changed that setting. Well, if people are searching a lot online for things about Boston because they're planning a vacation, or they're just interested in the Boston Red Sox or a variety of other different things, you're going to start potentially showing your ads to people that have shown an interest in Boston, even though they don't live in Boston. They could live in Idaho, and they're going to be seeing your ad for services in Boston. I can tell you firsthand, I know when this is happening with other people's campaigns, because there's times I see campaigns from other companies that are a localized business, and they're in Georgia, and I'm seeing their ad in Ohio when I'm in Ohio. So even if I was interested and I thought they were a really great company, I have no ability to take advantage of doing business with them because they're, 15 hours away in Georgia. Typically what's happened is maybe in recent weeks or months, I've searched for a hotel or searched for points of interest in Georgia because my family was going to take a vacation or something like that. And now all of a sudden in the algorithm, it's showing that I've shown an interest to Georgia. So now I'm seeing this ad, even though I don't live in Georgia. So on Facebook, there's a drop-down menu and there's 3 options. You want to select the one that says that the people you're targeting live in that area or in that area regularly, like work in that area. because if they work in that area, that's also a good indication they may be right outside the area. Or if you're depending on how you're targeting, if it's for a restaurant or things like that, the fact that they're in that area regularly still might mean that it's a legitimate person you want to target. But you want to make sure you select that, because there's another one that says that it includes those targeting areas, plus it says they're interested in that area. And if you leave that one on, and often that's the default, you're going to target a lot of people that you don't want to, just because they've shown an interest in your area. Now on Google, you're going to want to go into your campaign settings, and when you set up the area that you're targeting, very similar thing. There's an advanced settings tab there. You're going to want to click that. And again, it brings up 3 options, I believe. And one of those shows people are interested in your area or have recently even been in the area, but it could be somebody vacationing in the area. There's another option that says people are live in that area. You always want to, in my opinion, you want to select the one of people that live in the area, not the other one that often is defaulted, because you're going to end up targeting a lot of people that are maybe are interested in that area, but they don't live there, and it sort of defeats the purpose. You're still going to reach probably the people that you want to reach, but you may just waste some of your ad budget reaching people that aren't relevant. So we want to try to get as much value as we can for our clients out of every dollar they're spending. So any money that's being wasted putting ads in front of people that aren't relevant is just money down the drain. So we always try to tweak everywhere we can. And, this question is saying one of the common mistakes. That's an area I often see when we take over working for a client, and I see, that they're, I see what they're currently doing. That's one of the areas I always check, because it's often set up incorrectly, and it's just allowing, money to be wasted or money to be flushed down the toilet. So anyway, hopefully you guys found that valuable. It's really easy to find. If you set up audiences in Facebook or set up your geographic area that you're targeting in Google AdWords, it's all right there. If you have any additional questions, please send them, put them in the comments. But it's really easy to find, and it's just literally unchecking one box and checking a different box and saving it, and you're good to go. So it's not a complicated fix, but it's one that's often overlooked. So next question that came in. Let me see if any other questions have come in the comments. So we'll jump in. It says, what is the best content to add to my website to help SEO? Let's just break that down really quick on your website. Your basic structure of your website is going to have, your home page. It's going to have pages probably for each of your main services that you offer. It's probably going to maybe have a gallery. It may have an About Us page, a contact page. Those are going to be your core pillar pages on your website. So you definitely want to optimize those pages. And I would recommend, in most cases, if you can afford it, to have a different page on your website for each key service that you offer, so that you can optimize that page for that service. So again, we work with a lot of automotive companies. Oftentimes somebody wants to have an automotive page and they want to talk about car audio. They want to talk about remote starts, window tinting, paint protection film, and they want to put it all on their automotive page. The problem with that is then you have to try to take that one page on your website and optimize it for 4 different services: car audio, remote starts, window tinting, and paint protection film. It's very hard to do. You sort of end up with this mediocre SEO strategy that's trying to target a variety of different things. Even though you put the content on that page, you sort of end up having to compromise a little bit with the SEO to get decent SEO and try to get it for all those things. It'd be much better from a SEO optimization standpoint to have a separate page for car audio, a separate page for remote starts, a separate page for window tinting, and a separate page for paint protection film, so that all the content on that page is related to that service and is optimized for that page. So that's one way when you're talking about best content on your website. If you have the ability to do so and the budget to do so, if you're building your website yourself, I would recommend separating your services so that each service has its own page. Second thing you can do is when you're adding blogs or news posts or things like that, you know, make sure you refer back to those pillar pages. So let's say you're writing a blog about, let's use the example I was using about window tinting. Let's say you're writing a blog about three key benefits of automotive window tint. Within that article, you want to be putting hyperlinks or backlinks back to your automotive window tinting service page on your website. You want to connect those two. There's a benefit from an SEO standpoint to not only be creating new content, but backlinking to the main content on the website that's referring to that service. So there's that element of it. Plus you're adding new content, which Google likes to see because they like to see new, fresh content. So you're creating more relevance to the key service page and you're adding new content. Lastly, I would say if you cover a fairly decent geographic area, let's say you're in one spot, but you service a lot of areas. One of the things we often do for our clients is we build out different service area pages that are specific to that area. So let's say you're located in one city, but there's like 4 cities around you within a 20-mile radius that you also do a lot of work for, but your website doesn't come up when you do when you do SEO result searches, or you check the search engine results for those cities, you're not coming up as well as you'd like. One of the ways you can do that is you could create a page on your website that's specific to that city and state. So you can literally create a landing page for, let's say that you're in, we have a client in one particular area like Iowa City, but let's say that he also does work in Cedar Rapids. You would create a page on your website for Cedar Rapids, and you would create a page that's completely optimized for those products and services in Cedar Rapids versus just trying to make the one page cover all the different cities. Depending on how many relevant cities there are in your area, you may build out 1 or 2 extra pages on your website, or you may build out 10 extra pages on your website, depending on what you're trying to reach. The reality, though, is you want to, like I said, create a different page for each one of those. You don't necessarily even have to have those pages in the menu structure. You don't have to have those visible. Let's say when somebody visits your website, have those pages listed in your menu structure. But if they're set up for Google to crawl, that page may show up on a Google search for that particular area. And then once they're on that page, then they can navigate to the rest of your menu. So you could choose to either have them in your menu structure under like a locations tab or something like that, or you can choose to not have it in your menu structure at all and just be utilizing it so that when Google crawls your website, you have content on your website that's specific to those local areas. So those are a couple of ways that again, they ask the best, content you can put on your website for SEO. All the standard rules apply. SEO, Google's very forthright about what they look for. You want to have optimized images. You want to have pages that follow the general principles of Google SEO. And, those are all, I'm not going to get into those today. Those are easily, you could Google those and they'll walk you through the process, or you could just read on different websites, different best SEO practices. But when you start talking about adding content to your website, make sure any images you put on your website are optimized. Make sure that you're tying back, you're interlinking pages on your website to tell people where what we would call the pillar pages are. Like I would consider your service page the pillar page on your website for a particular product or service. So if I were to write an article that referred to that product or service, I would create backlinks back to that pillar page, which is going to help the SEO as well. So let me see. So Jeff had said good info about certain local areas. What's the blue check on Google listings mean? Jordan, I think if you're talking about like in Google business listings, I think there's a way on certain products and services, and it's only certain products and services. It's not all that you can verify your company, go through a process to verify your company. Depends on what product or service that you're doing. It's not available in all areas. My guess is that Google is, they're kind of like doing a demo in certain products and services to see how well it works and to see how well it's received, and they may roll it out more widely. But just recently we looked into that at length, and there was only certain products or services like lawyers and a variety of other things, real estate agents, and some other things that could get the blue check. And for those services, you still have to go through this verification process in order to get that blue check. It's not available in all categories. So hopefully Google will roll that out at some point in time. But in a lot of the products and services our clients offer, it's not currently available to get that blue check. That's, again, it's a constantly changing thing. So, you just have to, you have to pay attention to it. And, when it becomes available, anytime Google makes an option available to you, I would say take advantage of it. If they offer a verification process for your company, what they're doing is they're setting the stage that the companies that went through the verification process are probably going to be given priority over companies that haven't been verified. So anytime Google gives you an option to verify or do things like that, it's probably a good idea to do it, because they're probably setting the stage to where if you went through that process, it's going to be beneficial to you with regard to search or things like that. So hopefully that helps, Jordan, with regard to that. Sounds like you guys already have one for your company, so that's good to go on that end. Again, Google never is completely forthright on, they're never completely forthright on the benefit something gets, like telling you exactly how much benefit. But whenever those options are available, typically you can bet that it's somehow getting baked into the algorithm at some point in time with Google. So again, my feeling is I always recommend that my clients, if they have the option to do things like that, to do that. Jeff asks, I've received discount coupons for Google ads because I verified my business. Definitely great to verify. Yep. Again, if they give you that option, the discount coupons, I think, are only the scratching the surface of the, scratching the surface with regard to the benefits of verifying. I think there's going to be more substantive benefits in the form of where you show up in search results, which is going to pay dividends a lot more long-term than just a short-term discount coupon. But obviously, if they give you a discount coupon, take advantage of that as well. But the reasons to verify, I think, are much longer standing, and it might be way more beneficial to have been verified because of where you show up on search. So with that, let me see. I probably could squeak one more question. This is a question that comes up often, so I'm going to go ahead and sneak this in because I should be able to answer it pretty quickly. How long should it take SEO to put me on page 1 of Google search? It's a question that a lot of clients will ask us as they're engaging our agency, and I'll give you the same answer I give my clients. It's almost impossible to know exactly, because there's no two situations that are exactly alike. Let me quickly explain. If you're in a market where 3 or 4 of your competitors have engaged agencies, or they're doing SEO really well on their own, you're going to have to fight a little bit of an uphill battle, because you've got companies that are doing really good best practice type stuff for SEO in your area. So just the fact that you start doing SEO doesn't mean everybody else is going to fall off a cliff and you're immediately going to go to the top of the list. Those companies are doing good SEO practices as well. So you're going to have to continue to fight and nip and tuck to try to work your way up that, as those other companies are doing good SEO practices as well. In other areas, you may not have any competition that's doing really good SEO. So if you implement a couple positive SEO things, you can, bam, go straight to the top. So it's almost impossible to know without knowing the exact area. How many competitors are in the area? How many of them are doing good SEO and things like that? How long they've been in business. There's an element of SEO with regard to longevity. If a company's been there for 10 years and has been doing good SEO that whole time, and you're a brand new company, it's going to take a little bit to overtake somebody that's got some longevity, assuming they're doing a lot of other things right. The other question is, how big of an area you're in. Like I said, how many competitors there are. Like, even if they're not doing good SEO, but if there's a lot of competitors, if there's 20 people and you're in a 20-mile radius of you that are doing the same service that you are, obviously you're going to have to climb that ladder to get up in SEO. There's other companies that can come in that there's maybe one other company in the area that's doing the type of services. So if you launch a website and do some basic SEO, bare minimum, you should quickly start to come up number 2 or 3 in search engine results because there's only one other company in the area doing the product or service. So it's really hard to answer when you're going to get to the top of page 1. What I can say with regard to this is you should be able to work with an agency that's going to say, okay, let's figure out where your company is today. Like whether you do some searches of 5 or 10 relevant keyword searches, find out where your company's showing up today. Is it showing up on the middle of the 3rd page? Is it showing up at the bottom of the 2nd page, bottom of the 1st page? Wherever it's showing up. Let's say it's showing up 15th. It's showing up the midway down the 2nd page. It's showing up number 15 in listings. And then you go through and you check like 10 different search terms or search or key phrases to figure out where you show up. What you should start to see is if you start improving your SEO, that over the month on month, give it 30 days, check those same search terms again, give it another 30 days, check those search terms again. You should start to see an improvement. Even if you don't see that you've jumped from the middle of the 2nd page to the top of the 1st page, maybe what you're going to see is 30 or 60 days in, now you're at the top of the 2nd page. Another 30 days in, you're at the bottom of the 1st page. Another 30 or 60 days in, you're in the middle of the 1st page. What you should see is you should see positive progress. If you're doing SEO things, you're doing best practices, you should be able to track that your SEO performance is getting better. Even if that isn't the top of the 1st page, you should be able to start to see some results of the work that you're putting in. Any company that's going to guarantee you that you're going to be at the top of the 1st page within X amount of time, that would be the very first red flag that would raise in my mind about that company, because quite honestly, it's impossible to know how quickly you're going to get there. And there's so many other outside things that you can't control, like what the other companies are doing, as I mentioned, that you can't control, to where you can't really ever guarantee how quickly you're going to come at the top of the 1st page. You can, however, expect to see improvement in your results. So with that, we're right up against the end of our time. I appreciate you guys tuning in this morning. Again, Marketing Mondays 59. Next week is episode 60. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully you found that beneficial. If you have any questions during the week, go ahead and send them to me at Patrick with no K, Patrick at imagnetmgt.com. And I will be sure to get to them next week, or tune in next week. Ask your questions in the comments, and I will be sure to get to them at that time. So again, thank you guys for tuning in, and girls for tuning in. And I hope to talk to you guys soon, and hope you guys have a great week. Take care.